Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sunny Go One Piece podcast. On this episode, we're going to be diving into episodes 572 through 574, which will cover manga chapters 652 through 654. And it's time to say farewell to Fishman Island and finally enter the New World portion of the Grand Line to see all the craziness and dangers it has to offer. Alright, so synopsis. Now that the party is over, it's time for the Straw Hats to say goodbye to the people of Fishman Island and finally set sail towards the New World, where they will need to once again brave the dangers of the deep sea, as well as what's waiting for them on the surface from a familiar but formidable foe. Okay, so differences in these episodes. So there are a lot of small moments that are added to pad out time. Like, there are a ton of little differences. So I'm not going to go into detail about all of them because it's just a lot, but most of them are just really tiny changes, like little tiny interactions or little tiny moments that kind of like connect different panels that were in the manga. So for example, like the Minister of the Right looks through the treasure list to notice that the Tamateboko was part of the treasure that they actually gave to the Straw Hats on accident. But my favorite one has to be where the anime adds the Ammonites trying to repair the statue and the tower that Zoro sliced off when he escaped. That was a really funny moment, especially when after they got it to kind of like sync up, it then kind of like slants it back down again. The other thing is, the anime has Frankie already at the Sunny working with Den to finish the coding and all that stuff. However, the manga actually had Frankie already there in the palace with them when Luffy informs everyone that they've challenged Big Mom. Another change that was made was Smoker's full reveal. This actually doesn't happen until closer to the start of the next arc, but in the anime they actually opted to fully reveal Smoker here, whereas in the manga he was pretty much obscured. You only got like really like close-ups of his face, but you don't get his full body shot until later. I think they probably did this because Smoker, he doesn't make his appearance till later, but because there's like several episodes of fillers between here and the start of the next arc, they may have just wanted to sort of just show Smoker right out here. Another larger change is during the scene where Zoro calls Sanji Mr. Nosebleed and then Sanji in turn calls him Mosshead, the anime changes and omits the next section of this fight, as in the manga, Sanji tells Zoro to be careful on his next meal if he messes with the cook, and then Zoro responds with, "Bring it on, I'll just digest anything, even if it's poison or razor blades." So I think this was probably changed because of how sort of violent this is, and so I think this was definitely done for more censorship reasons, more so than any sort of like flow or time. The other one is during the farewell, the anime adds to the whole bit about how the people of Fishman Island love humans now, as well as robots and raccoons, but then fails to mention Brook at all. And in the anime, they actually do rectify this, as they have a little scene where the Medica sisters all add the fact that they like bones too, which Brook obviously really appreciates. And I like that little change that they actually included Brook in this nice little goodbye. Another nice touch that I thought that they added was the crew counting down to when they surface, or I guess they count up. But yeah, I thought that was a really nice touch that was never in the anime. Similarly, another scene that I actually liked that anime added was after they land on the waters of the New World, Usopp, Chopper, Brook, and Luffy all talk to the island whales about how they promise to mention the Boon when they see him, and that that they hope that they take care of themselves, and then thanks them for the ride, which I thought was a really cool touch as well. Now, the biggest change, obviously, is the episode ends with them surfacing to see a fleet of marine ships on the horizon, where in the manga, this was not actually how it ends. In fact, because of the filler stuff, this is why the marine ships were added, whereas in the manga originally, they actually are pretty close to the next island that they're going to. And so this change was obviously set so that they could set up the next 4 filler episodes. So those are most of the bigger changes, or the changes that I actually liked. There are probably at least like 24 more small, tiny changes of like showing characters walking from places, or small changes in the sequencing of scenes and stuff like that. So if you really want a comprehensive list, they're definitely out there. But with that done, let's get into the episodes themselves. To start these episodes, we learn the reason why Jinbei has to delay accepting Luffy's invitation to become one of his nakama, and it's because he and the Sun Pirates are currently aligned under the Big Mom Pirates, and must first break that alliance before he can accept Luffy's offer to join the Straw Hats, which given what Luffy just did is not going to be easy, and Big Mom will probably not take that lightly, from what we can already tell of her. And something I was actually kind of surprised to learn was that the Sun Pirates were still active to this day. I remember reading this, I just assumed that the Sun Pirates kind of disbanded after the era of the flashback, especially since Jinbei had basically been separated from them for so long, or at least from our perspective. But that was just a bad assumption on my part, especially when he resigned from the Shichibukai. Although Jinbei mentions to Neptune that it was just coincidence that he aligned himself with Big Mom and that the island was protected by Big Mom. But I think we can kind of infer that was one of Big Mom's conditions, in addition to the payment of the 10 tons of sweets, that the Sun Pirates fall under the Big Mom Pirates. And I do really like that moment where Jinbei and Neptune joyfully talk about how, in place of Big Mom's flag protecting them, that they want to use the Straw Hat flag instead. And I really love moments like this throughout the New World, where Luffy is no longer an up-and-coming rookie pirate. He is now slowly starting to establish himself and gain the notoriety, resources, and strength of all the very pirates that we started the series being very wary and scared of. It's just a moment that brings us, audience, great joy, which is awesome. And the next scene can only be described as abrupt chaos. It's revealed that the Minister of the Right planted a bomb in the Tamatebako in response to Hody breaking into it 10 years ago, which has now been given away to Big Mom. That revelation freaks everyone out for various reasons, as now they've just hand-delivered a bomb disguised as a trick to Big Mom. Nami is of course freaked out because they just gave away all that treasure. The rest of the crew is terrified that Luffy just picked a fight with a Yonko, and so everybody's just freaking out with different reasons. Nami's wrath here is also pretty funny, as she beats the monster trio to a pulp and even somehow hurts Luffy with lightning. Of course, for people who can't seem to get the joke, no, Nami doesn't have haki or anything. People will always invariably ask why Nami can hurt these three, and the answer is always, it's a bit. Like, it's a joke. And like I mentioned in the differences section, that background plot of the Ammonites trying to repair that dragon in the tower that Zoro sliced is also really funny as well. Also in the manga, Neptune's face when he's freaking out about accidentally having Luffy give the bomb-laced Tamate box to Big Mom is absolutely gut-bustingly funny. The way Oda draws his face is just it's so amazing. The absolute fear of God in that man's face is so funny, and they kind of fail to capture that in the anime. But do yourself a favor and go check out chapter 652 and look at Neptune's face. Like, he is so terrified, and I love how it's drawn. Okay, so moving back to Caribou, this was a moment and plot thread that I had completely forgotten about until last year in 2023. When this became relevant again. But as Caribou is running towards the town square trying to get the treasure back from Pekoms and Tamago, he talks about how he was planning on using that treasure and the intel about Shirahoshi being Poseidon as gifts for a certain someone. Now, it's never really hinted at who this mystery person might be, and I will admit, I completely forgot all about this until 9 years later when it became relevant again. And yeah, it was fun seeing this scene again, because I completely forgot that this was set up all the way back at this point in the story. So definitely pay attention to this and keep this one filed away in the back of your head as you go through the series. One other line that in retrospect surprised the heck out of me upon rewatch is how Pekoms and Tamago talk about how the tea party is in 4 days, which is shocking because of how much real world time passes and how much story happens in the span of those supposed 4 days leading up to this tea party. Like, I had no idea that essentially 3.5 story arcs occur in that time period, about 260 episodes, and 4 years of real world time passes to cover these, and I'm going to say supposed 4 days leading up to the tea party, which is wild to me. However, one thing that kind of confuses me is that the good folks over at the Library of Ohara put together this insanely comprehensive timeline using information from all the canon material, including SBS, Vipera cards, and the story itself. And it has the tea party taking place on February 29th, and the end of Fishman Island, or this current point in time, is listed as February 7th, which is about 3 weeks, which lines up more with what I originally thought, because I thought that this probably took about little over 2 weeks to complete. So the 3 weeks time period makes more sense to me. So either Tamago and Peckums are talking about a different tea party, or Oda just kind of forgot about this and kind of kept adding more story to this time frame. I mean, he maybe had it planned that only one arc would exist between here and when they actually meet Big Mom for this tea party, supposedly. But I don't know. With all the information, I'm more inclined to believe the timeline that the Library of Ohara actually created, because it seems to line up better with, and they back it up with a lot of different pieces of information found throughout all the canon material. But yeah, because I have a hard time believing that 4 days is what it took to complete the next 3.5 arcs, which is insane. But getting back to Caribou, Peckums, and Tamago, Caribou rather foolishly attacks Peckums and Tamago for the treasure, but it's here we see just how strong even the subordinates of the Big Mom Pirates are. Like, sure, Caribou is kind of weak, and, any member of this monster trio can easily beat him, but he's still at least a 200 million berry bounty with a Logia fruit, and Peckums, as it turns out, is a devil fruit user, but instead of being a form of a cat zone type, it turns out he's by default a race of cat type people, and he actually has the turtle zone fruit, or which probably would be the Kame Kame no Mi, or turtle fruit, which was insanely funny. Like, it's such a weird left turn where you think this guy is a cat zone, but instead he is a actual cat person but has a turtle zone fruit. But Peckums easily one-shots Caribou with a simple punch, no doubt infused with haki. But this is another scene where I feel like the manga does a better job of conveying the impact. The impact on the manga, like, it almost looks like Peckums just absolutely destroys Caribou in the manga. However, in the anime, I mean, he gets hit hard and gets sent flying, but I feel like the way they animated it, it just doesn't quite convey the same level of impact that Peckums does to Caribou in the manga. Like, it looks like he literally just shatters him so hard in the gut. Like, it's quite impressive how Oda actually, like, conveys the amount of, like, impact and damage that's being done there. It's pretty cool. Again, this is definitely another one of those panels that I recommend you go check out in the manga if you haven't seen it. The other thing too is one of the Fishman Island people mentions that Peckums' bounty is 330 million berries, which is crazy high. Like, he's just 70 million shy of basically Luffy's current 400 million and way above Zoro's 120 million. Although, to be fair, Zoro hasn't had an updated bounty since NES Lobby, so that's a bit out of date, but it's still worth noting just how high Peckums' bounty is. And if that's Peckums' bounty, it kind of gives you an idea of just how ridiculously high Big Mom could potentially be, since Peckums doesn't even seem to be that high up in the totem pole, considering he's being made to go around and do these gopher tasks. Oda does a good job of conveying just how insane Big Mom and her crew really is in just 2 short episodes. I feel like you already get a sense of just the threat that Big Mom poses, just from a character standpoint as well as from a power scaling standpoint. Then we get a tease for the next arc as we welcome back a couple of characters we haven't really prominently seen in a while, and that's Tashigi and Smoker, who have also entered the new world to keep chasing after the Straw Hats, which it looks like they're camping out the exit from Fishman Island as they see all the recently released pirate slaves surface one by one, which is rather unlucky for them to go from being enslaved by Hody to then being captured by the Marines right away, which sucks. And it's here we learn that the pair have also received promotions in rank. Tashigi has now been promoted to the rank of captain, but she's still our favorite Tashigi and still unable to see without her glasses, but somehow can still accurately deflect a cannonball, even though she's later seen lecturing the ship mast as she's trying to talk to her crew. Smoker has been promoted to the rank of Vice Admiral and has a rather slick redesign, sporting a slicked hair and sunglasses, which is a little kind of weird, but also looks cool. And they have been put in charge of a new crew in the G5 branch of the Marines, which apparently is known for being a bunch of crazy outlaw set of Marine soldiers who do very unorthodox and sometimes cruel-looking things. However, there's one little really minor detail that is curious is that one of the Marine soldiers that's been with the pair since their debut in Logtown, Mashikaku, is nowhere to be seen. So I wonder if they left him behind in the Paradise section of the Grand Line, which is kind of a shame. I like that random detail that this one Marine soldier stuck with them the whole time. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, there's one soldier that's always seen with the pair and assisting Tashigi especially. And he's got these like distinct pointy sideburns that's hard to miss. His name is Mashikaku, and you'll see him in almost every moment with Tashigi and Smoker up till now. And yeah, he's just missing now. And I don't think I've seen him since, to be honest. I do think they actually left him behind. And yeah, it's kind of a shame. I like that little detail. Although I hear that he has been cast in the live action, so we will get to see Mashikaku in the live action season 2 when Smoker and Tashigi also get their proper introduction as well. Lastly, I love that when the captured pirates tell Smoker about what happened on Fishman Island with Hody, he already knows who exactly is the one that saved them. And that is the Straw Hats. And like I've mentioned in the past, this is probably why Smoker wants to catch Luffy so badly, because he is able to do everything that Smoker wants to do, but can't as a Marine, despite the fact that he's supposed to be the good guy. Like every time Luffy comes in and saves the people, the Marines are left to pick up the scraps, or worse, they are actively hindering the Straw Hats from helping, which no doubt pisses Smoker off to no end. But I honestly think that Smoker secretly maybe like is a strong word, but is optimistically intrigued by Luffy despite him being a pirate. Like, I seriously wonder if Smoker would actually turn Luffy in if he ever legitimately caught him. But it'll be fun to see how Smoker plays a role in the next arc. The beginning of episode 573 sees the story revisit that hanging plot thread of Madame Charlie's prophecy that Luffy would destroy Fishman Island. Obviously, this did not come to pass, but as Kami correctly thinks to herself that this may not necessarily mean that the prophecy still won't come true, whether it be in the near future or maybe even years down the line. And to this day, even as of the release of manga chapter 1128, this is still yet to be revealed how this will come into play. Now, one famous and popular theory that many people have thought about is that eventually, towards the end of the story, in their clash with the world government and the Celestial Dragons, that somehow Luffy will destroy the Red Line where Marijois sits atop, just above Fishman Island, and the resulting destruction from that would then cause collateral damage, thus destroying Fishman Island. And as a side note, this is also how many people believe that the All Blue will come about as well. With the Red Line gone, all the blues can mix together, and there will be a point in which all four blues meet, mixing all the fish of the world, thus returning the All Blue to the world. And there's this theory that the reason the All Blue can't be found is because it literally doesn't exist anymore. But at some point in ancient history, it did exist. And that the reason for that is that the Celestial Dragons at one point were somehow able to erect the Red Line to place their Pangaea castle atop of it. Now, there are a couple pieces of newer information that kind of pokes a couple holes in this theory, but also there are new pieces of information that kind of also align with it as well. And I still think it's a pretty good theory, even though there are some contradicting things that can possibly be fit into it. But we'll just have to wait and see how Oda decides to pay this mystery off. Now it has come time to say farewell to Fishman Island, but not before a few fun moments like Sanji actually being loved by the mermaid ladies and Zoro telling Mr. Nosebleed to just stay behind, to which Sanji gets pissed off and they get into their usual shouting match. But one thing that stands out about this is that the ladies genuinely adore Sanji. Like, up until now, I feel like Sanji is largely ignored by the ladies at the end of each arc despite his adoration of them. And so maybe this new Sanji is finally starting to figure out how to actually connect more with the women that he meets. So that'll be a fun little thing to kind of notice as the series goes on. The scene directly following this kills me every time as the Minister of the Right tries to persuade Neptune one more time about telling them about the bomb in the Tamate box. But when they look over at poor Chopper and Usopp, who are on the verge of having a nervous breakdown at the fact that they've been targeted by a Yonko, is so funny. And there's a really underrated scene later on when Hachi is saying goodbye to them and says sorry he can't guide them back to the surface. And you see that Usopp and Chopper are still depressed, but to overcompensate, they start yelling things to show false strength. And the way Robin just stands there and interjects, "You're pretty desperate," or "Yake ne." The way she delivers that line with a straight face is so funny. I think in the manga, she's kind of like just, you could even miss it too. But I just feel like the way Yamaguchi Yuriko portrays this one line is so spot on, and I love this scene in the manga or in the anime. And again, with more callbacks to pre-time skip era, just like back at the Twin Capes for the Paradise half of the Grand Line, the Minister of the Left gives Nami a new log post for navigating the New World, and it's here we're told that in the New World, just like everything else, the magnetic fields of the island are also more volatile, and this new triple log post allows them to acquire multiple logs and decide where to go based on its logs. And the more unstable the log readings, the more dangerous and volatile the island could be. And while his intentions were good in telling them how to best decide their safest path forward, the weakling trio knows exactly what effect this information will have on their captain. And Luffy, immediately upon hearing this, wraps himself around Nami and wants to specifically aim for the most dangerous one that has the wobbly log. And the cool thing is so in the recent chapter 1128, something very similar to this happens, and I love that they're still doing this and that Luffy is still true to his character, as so similarly all the other crew members are also very aware of this effect. In the next scene, when Luffy says goodbye to Fukaboshi, Mamboshi, and Ryuboshi, they mention that the next time he sees them, that they will become great knights and lead the greatest army on the seafloor, which is definitely foreshadowing they will eventually return someday to help Luffy with said army at the end, along with all the other allies and friends they've made so far. And Oda has stated that he intends to end One Piece with a war so great that it makes Marineford look like it was a tiny skirmish. Now, that wasn't the exact quote, but it was something to that effect. Speaking of foreshadow, Shirahoshi swims out to the Sunny as it sets sail, asking Luffy to promise that someday he will show her around in the surface world, and have him make a pinky promise just like her mom did way back when. And most of the other Straw Hats also join in on the promise, while Frankie and Zoro kind of stand back a bit. Frankie at least waves his pinky, indicating that he also shares in that pinky promise too, which was actually added in the anime. He didn't actually do this in the manga. It has a panel where you see Frankie and Zoro kind of smiling and looking at it, implying that they were also, going to be part of this promise as well. But in the anime, it was a nice touch that they added Frankie waving his pinky. And I always found it a little disappointing, though, that Zoro didn't kind of do anything to sort of actually confirm this, even though we know that he probably shares the same sentiment. And this scene, of course, is yet another reference to something from the pre-time skip era, as this captures that same spirit of the crew as they set sail from Arabasta, as they promise Bibi and Karu that if they ever meet again, no matter what, they'll always still be a nakama to them, which was a really cool detail as well. And Shirahoshi also promising that the next time they meet, she will no longer be a crybaby, is also another setup that will most definitely be paid off, in that when she does show up again from the end of the series, that she will be in control of her abilities and no doubt be a badass powerhouse that will be a very big factor in deciding the victory or, I guess, loss, but I don't think they'll lose. But anyways, yeah, it'll be fun to see what Shirahoshi is like when the end of the series comes about. Then there's this really great scene of a fisherman child wanting a straw hat, calling it a hero's hat, which is amazing that the straw hat is quickly becoming sort of this symbol of a hero and hope. And I also think that this will somehow play a role in the story to come. Like, the reason this straw hat is so important is not necessarily because it has some, it's some sort of amazing artifact, but more so because it's basically a symbol of hope. Because at some point, even beyond Roger, this hat was something very special because it keeps getting passed down. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what actual meaning this straw hat has. I also like this scene because it shows that while change for good isn't, it's not instantaneous. As you see this kid's father saying that they can't go up to the surface world to get a straw hat because humans are too dangerous, but he catches himself this time. He realizes that he still has his own prejudices, and while it'll be hard to completely erase them, he at least knows now that he shouldn't pass them on to his son, which, bringing it back full circle, is what ultimately Otohime and Tiger both sacrificed their lives to do. And Jinbei, of course, steps in and tells them that he'll send for Straw Hats, aka the hero's hat, to be sent down to Fishman Island, which I think is such an amazing moment to cap off this story thread. The rest of episode 573 has this really fun montage of everything that led up to them reaching the new world set to We Go. And I don't know why, because I've seen this many times, but no matter how many times I see it, it always gets me emotional and hyped for their new adventure in a crazy world far more dangerous and unknown, like the new world, with everyone redeclaring their goals and their roles, except for Robin, who just kind of happily is there with her new family and she's always wanted, giggling at everyone else's excitement, basically serving as the second version of the barrel breaking scene from before they entered the Grand Line, which I think is perfect. Episode 574 starts off with some more fan service with Nami taking a shower, but at least with this fan service, it does kind of serve to further develop the characters, even if it's just with a tiny bit of stuff. We do learn that Nami has gotten so good at using her climb attack that she can use it as a shower by producing a rain cloud. And at first you might be thinking, why would it be necessary to go through that trouble of taking a shower this way when the Sunny is already equipped with an actual shower? But on a boat at sea, you may not always have access to shower water, so you might as well conserve it if you can by using this method. At least that's what I kind of rationalize it in my head anyways. The other interesting thing we learn is that while Nami doesn't want people peeping on her bathing, she seems to be completely fine with Chopper seeing her naked and even offers to have him join her, which I thought was really surprising. But we already know that Chopper has stated back in Thriller Bark in episode 340, when she was taking a shower just before being assaulted by Absalom, that he doesn't really find human women's naked bodies attractive. And Oda later in an SBS question from volume 47 further elaborates that while he doesn't find human women attractive, he can still fall in love with humans for their personalities and their mind, as well as being attracted to female reindeers. So we do know that Chopper does still find things attractive, it's just not specifically human female bodies. Of course, this also kind of flies in the face of the famous happiness punch scene from Arabasta, which we've already discussed, but that is, as Oda tells us, that it's due both to Luffy and Chopper being really badly influenced by Usopp's reaction, even though both of them don't really find women all that sexually attractive. And I know I sound like a broken record at this point, and I say this after every arc, but I can't understate how much I love these episodes of in-between arcs where the crew just hangs out with each other doing random things, having fun. And it's so rare, especially at this point in the story where things are starting to get heavier and more intense. And we don't get many of these. Like Usopp and Luffy having fun like kids, making a lure for catching the giant deep water fish, or Luffy getting excited about getting sucked into the white Strom. The shot of Luffy, Usopp, Sanji, and even Zoro all freaking out at, getting upset over the thought of having to give up that giant fish that they just caught. However, my favorite one is Nami telling Frankie to use the coup de burst to escape, but then Frankie confidently yelling, "It's super late!" as they all get sucked into this massive whirlpool. I mean, just seeing the Straw Hats just mess around with each other is so fun. I almost wish there was just more time for these things. Like, that's what the fillers should be, If they don't progress the story much, but I don't know, just seeing the Straw Hats just do random things, I always really enjoy. One thing I didn't really mention in the differences section in the earlier part of the podcast was there is a small little difference, and there's this nice little touch of the Sunny also getting dizzy with swirls in its eyes in the manga, where you don't really see this in the anime. I tried looking to see if they actually do this, but I couldn't find a single frame where the Sunny has the swirls on its eyes. And I wish they had kept this small detail in the anime because it's a really funny moment. And I love it when Oda actually gives the ship's figureheads actual emotional responses. Like, my favorite one will always be Captain Kuro's black cat head, like getting scared of Luffy as he's ripping it off the ship to use to attack the Kuro's men. And you see the face just like, yeah, and like this sweat bead coming out of its head. It's so funny. I wish he would do more of that. And in another callback to the pre-time skip era, just like when entering the Grand Line from the Reverse Mountain, where they ran into an island whale in Laboon, this time when they come out of the White Strom, they run into a whole pod of island whales with several of them looking like Laboon, all with scars on their head and everything. But We, as the reader and audience, know that it can't be him for the reasons that Usopp gives, that he can't fit through the red line, but also that Laboon still has the sloppy version of the Straw Hat Pirate's Jolly Roger that Luffy drew on his scars as the promise for returning to him eventually. So yeah, Laboon is still safely over in the Grand Line near the Twin Capes. But you really feel for Brook here, though, as he is just beside himself, overcome with emotions of seeing an island whale that looks so much like Laboon, that he just starts becoming overwhelmed and haphazardly starts singing Binks Sake. Even though Brook tries to talk to them and connect with them, saying that Laboon is safe and all grown, even though it seems like this is just a desperate wishful thinking on Brook's part, I feel like there is actually a very good chance that this is Laboon's actual pod that he got lost from. Even when Brook starts to sing Binks Sake properly, you can see that they enjoy the music just like Laboon does. So it seems like the island whales in general either just love the sound of this music, or this is Laboon's family and they all share that same trait. And this is such a heartfelt moment for Brook to get a glimmer of hope for the day that he will be again reunited with Laboon. And the crazy thing is if this moment gets me this emotional, I can't even imagine when they actually do in fact reunite with Laboon and Crocus back at the Twin Capes for when the story reaches its eventual conclusion. And I don't know about you, but we're all going to be a mess. I guarantee it for that scene. And lastly, Sanji gets a pretty funny moment, as Sanji, always being the level-headed one, interjects and points out that this is no time to be admiring the whales, as they are still potentially in danger, and says that they should do a roll call to make sure everyone is safe. But then after confirming Nami and Robin are safe, he just stops and calls it good. However, this was all unnecessary, as Nami says that they should just stay the course and follow the whales. And they eventually make it back to the surface, only to be greeted by a fleet of marine ships. And yeah, the Straw Hats are finally in the New World with no idea what awaits them. However, before we can actually move on to the next arc, the next few podcast episodes will be covering various different things like an arc review for Fishman Island, as well as going over the next cover story, and the next few filler episodes that tie into the movie film Z that came out around this time. So, yep, definitely we'll have a few podcasts before we can actually get into the proper next arc. But we'll get to that when we get there. And yeah, if you did enjoy this, send me a like or comment. And if you want to join me on this journey of rewatching One Piece, please consider subscribing. Check out my Instagram and Twitter account at SunnyGo Podcast for updates when I post new episodes and to see pictures of my manga collection. And as always, I wanted to thank you for taking the time out to listen. And yeah, there will be a short spoiler section, but if you're not interested in that, stay safe out there, and I hope to see you on the next episode. Bye! Alright, a couple spoiler section things. Most of this isn't really like actual spoiler discussion, but I just wanted to point it out. So I think one of the best scenes that will come out eventually is Jinbei leaving the Big Mom Pirates. This is one of the coolest scenes in the entire series, and I just wanted to say that because obviously this episode kind of evokes that memory. But also the Tamate Bako, or the Tamate box, exploding as a bomb is also referenced in the Whole Cake Island arc as well. But I always thought that was kind of like a really weird, like almost just tacked on kind of thing, how that thing explodes, and that's what basically allows the whole party to get destroyed essentially, and it kind of saves the Straw Hats. But the thing that I wanted to talk about most is the fact that we finally get the revelation of who Caribou was talking about when he wanted to essentially provide treasure and intel to. And turns out that person was Blackbeard, which is very interesting because, again, like I mentioned in the non-spoiler section, I had completely forgot about this story thread. And also, it never even crossed my mind that Blackbeard would be the person that he was talking about. And to be quite honest, I had no idea who this person might have been, even at the time when I did kind of see this playing out. So yeah, I mean, it's still unclear as to like how that will kind of all play out. I mean, we definitely talked about how with Blackbeard now having intel about where Pluton and Poseidon potentially might be, and that Fishman Island as well as Wano might be in danger. And so yeah, in the manga, we just finally saw that Caribou is about to reach Blackbeard and probably tell him this information. So yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to mention in this spoiler section. Not much of an actual spoiler section, so if you stayed around for this, sorry. But I'll see you all in the next episode. See ya!